Good morning everybody, welcome back to a Chart Nerd technical analysis video. Today I will be covering Telcoin, the ticker is TEL against USDT on the weekly time frame. We are seeing some sort of relief and a flood of green in the markets today for a lot of altcoins. That are sort of bouncing off of lows recently. Now, if we have a little zoom in to TEL here before I get into depth with anything, what you'll notice is that from this local high that we put in March 2024, we're sort of caught between this falling channel right now, and we have had this week, as of recent, a touchdown back on this descending support line, a third point of contact on this descending support line. So at the moment everything is in check and going as it should be for me, and I want to remain optimistic for us here for Telcoin, but I do think that Telcoin is trying to get to a certain target. So right now I believe that we're currently in some sort of 1, 2, this is a wave 3, we might see a wave 4 up to resistance one final time, up to this resistance zone, and then get the final 5th wave back down to this multi-year ascending support that I mentioned in TEL's previous videos. So you can see that down here we have multiple points of contact on this trend line I've previously spoken about in many other videos, where every time Telcoin comes down to this sort of level or range, it has some really nice relief. So it wouldn't be surprising if we do see another touch point on this trend line somewhere down the line, and it would be the 5th time since 2018 that this point of contact gets touched if this was to play out. So we do need to keep our eyes on this, and I do think that potentially right now we are in this 5-wave correction in this falling channel looking for the breakout, and our key resistance zone is this red box here, which you can see is a rough price of 0.003129. okay, and I've just gone in the middle of this sort of range. We have seen Telcoin actually come up and break through this zone, and it came back to it for support, but then put in a lower high. So all we did here was indicate, okay, you've got a high, we came up, we put in a lower high, indicates depleting buying pressure, we rolled over. Okay, so we're still amongst this play here. Now, to invalidate my theory of still coming up and then retesting this trend line one more time, to invalidate that, what we need to see is this be an ABC correction where potentially TEL has already bottomed out, because we do have higher lows as we're climbing up here. You've got a low, a higher low, and a higher low, and right now we've got highs and a higher high. So theoretically, if this ABC is in and we start seeing TEL come up and tackle through this range, then I would be looking for Telcoin to start making its next impulsive move and to continue putting in this bullish structure of higher lows and higher highs over time. So there is a big potential that this play is in. We do have levels of resistance above that I would like to see Telcoin get above. So if we zoom in here, if this is the low that we're bouncing off of right now, and we are to see the next impulsive move, which I think could take us up towards 0.007 in the near short to midterm, then again we do have key levels of resistance to break out above us on this fib. So you can see that this area here, the 0.003 range, is very strong resistance for us. Okay, so even the Fibonacci from this low, if this is the low, retracing back to this high on the weekly, this is our important range we need to break above in order to see a retracement back to this local high that we've come down from in March at a minimum. Now, zooming back out to the full picture here, I just wanted to give a quick breakdown on why this multi-year ascending support line is here and is so important for us to hold right now. So what you'll notice is that back here in 2019, we started forming this horizontal triangle, and what you'll notice is from the top of that triangle resistance down to support, and we move it over, we had a breakout target when we broke out in January, and we rallied up to this target pretty much to a T. You can see here that on the 15th of March we ran up to the technical target, or just shy of the technical target should I say. Had a couple of weeks pullback before exploding and putting in the all-time high. Now what happened at this all-time high is we started forming a descending triangle, which then led us to break down. We lost descending triangle support, ran into it as resistance. This confirmed Telcoin's loss of support here and entering into a bear market. Now what you'll notice is that if we go from the peak of the descending triangle down to its support, when it broke down, it did meet its technical target and some, and this has led us into this sort of range here where TEL has a support base and a resistance We're sort of building some sort of foundation across here, very similarly to how we did prior in this sort of cycle. We had this sort of range here where we was just underneath this resistance and support coiling up, and eventually we broke out. Right now we've had a bull run, a descending triangle breakdown, we've met the target, and we've just been consolidating, coming across to this multi-year ascending support, and we've been bouncing off of it ever since we touched it back in October of 2023. So this is why it's so crucial that we do hold this ascending support line, and I feel like if we fail to break out of resistance, this descending resistance on our head, then this is potentially where we can get a next retest coming back down for a final opportunity before getting involved in the madness that's to come, I think, in the latter part of 2024 into 2025. So for me, this is what it looks like at the moment. We're either in some sort of A, B, C correction, have found support, and if we do tackle this resistance, then do look for the retracement back up to this 0.003 range, which I keep talking about as resistance. We have to see this level broken in order to confirm that we are looking to retrace at least back to this high and up to those targets I had on for us at the start of this video. So if this is the local low right now, we have to tackle out of the 0.003 range in order for us to at least retrace back to the 1 fib and push on to higher targets and put in this sort of higher high that we're looking for. Because again, as I said, you've got this resistance zone here. We've got a higher high that's broke out. Right now we're coming back for a higher low, looking for the next impulsive higher high target, which sits at 0.0079. So I hope you enjoyed this TA update today. Again, I will keep up to date with Telcoin every other week or so. I do like to keep zoomed out and look at the more macro perspective of things. So, you know, updating these projects every day probably isn't best to my ability, but I will try and point out and give you breakdowns everywhere and where I can, and hopefully we can see some positivity come from this project. One more thing before I go, I like looking at the Gaussian channel on the weekly. Now, isn't it sort of ironic that we do look very similar in regards to, as I mentioned before, this sort of area here where we had this sort of accumulation range. We was putting in lower highs and lower lows, but eventually we got back above the Gaussian and just didn't look back. Okay, so we fell underneath the red lower band of the Gaussian for many weeks, and we was meeting it as resistance, and we eventually, after putting in higher lows over time, just smashed through it. Right now, is it not ironic that we are doing something very similar, where we've had this sort of foundational base that we've been building, and right now we was underneath, or previously we was underneath this level of resistance, very similarly to how we was back here for a few weeks / months. Equally, again, you will notice that some sort of similarities where you fell through and then rallied up again into it. You know, it looks very similar, and right now we have already had the breakthrough on the Gaussian here, but right now we're coming back for key support, looking for the next move. So what I wanted to point out that's important to do with the Gaussian is that we flipped green just after putting in this local high on the weekly. So just after that, on the week of April the 8th, the Gaussian flipped green. Now the last time the Gaussian flipped green, TEL did not look back. Are we just correcting here back into a key level of support before not looking back again, and rinse repeat happening, exactly the same thing happening for us? It's a huge potential. Now, one other important factor here that we need to keep an eye on is the fact that TEL has had this A correction down to the top band of the Gaussian, a B wave, which was a lower high, indicated depleting buying pressure, and now we've had a C wave back down to the mid band of the Gaussian. We did currently close below it last week, so we do need to see ourselves get back above this mid band of the Gaussian, which is acting as resistance right now. This is a current price of 0.002. So it'd be nice to see us get our asses back above the weekly Gaussian and start sort of coiling up underneath resistance here. But as I said before, we could be coming up for that wave 4 into resistance, and then looking for the final 5th wave back down to those targets I had for you earlier in this sort of descending channel, where you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before looking to sort of come down to the band and break out. So that's my update for you today, guys. I hope it wasn't too confusing trying to explain some of the Gaussian channel. We did come down to the top. We rallied up to try tackle this high, couldn't do it, got forced down, and we're now right at the middle band. If we fail to tackle out of this, I would look for the lower band as support as the next option in the Gaussian. At this point, I think the correction would be over and we will start marching on and putting in new local highs. So I hope you enjoyed the update today, guys. From Chart Nerd TA, take care. Peace out.